Midweek, Adam, as the Buffaloes prepare for Cincinnati, and today we got a chance to talk to running backs coach Gary Harrell, Coach Flea, Isaiah Augusta, and also Arden Walker, Cherry Creek graduate. So good interviews today, and obviously the theme today was the running back group because we talked to Flea and Isaiah. What were your thoughts talking to those guys today?
Well, first off, it was bigger than just football, right? With those interviews, we heard from Coach Flea talking about the fact he had to go in for brain surgery and how it really puts things in perspective. And then Isaiah Augusta talked about how his why is his 5-month-old daughter, and she's been out to every home game, it sounds like. So that part of it, that's the great part of being able to interact with these players, is hearing a little bit more about their story and what makes them tick. In terms of the running back competition, I think a lot of CU fans, ourselves included, really wanted to see Isaiah Augusta get more carries. He got that opportunity down in Tucson and did pretty well in that. And it's not always, I think sometimes you kind of look at just the stat line, the box score, 53 yards, doesn't jump off the page, but some of the things that did to kind of alleviate the pressure from Shedeur Sanders, who made a couple of mistakes in that game, but didn't have to be Superman, for Colorado to win a game by a very large margin. And so I think that's the part of the run game that when they go for 148, it really shows what that can do for this offense. And then lastly, just hearing that Dallin Hayden, that ankle injury is still a little bit lingering. Michael Welch with a hamstring as well that kind of got retweaked on that run at Arizona. So there's a lot of talented backs, and right now it sounds like Isaiah Augusta and Charlie Offerdahl are the healthiest there.
Yeah, and with Isaiah, looking within the yards as well, is that a lot of it are some of those things you can rely on him on 3rd and 1, and 3rd and 2. And, if you're getting 3 yards on a 3rd and 2, that's great. You don't need that 28-yard run or whatever. So he also, at the goal line had a nice 1-yard touchdown run where he was able to power his way in. So that's what I love about his style, and I think that's what Buff fans wanted, was this is a guy that can get those tough yards. And, you see him out there. I love his running style. He's sort of high, but then when he'll get low at the right moments. And so I love watching him play. And he talked about, hey, you talk about the why. He's driven by the fact, he goes, if I don't do well out there, my daughter doesn't eat. He goes, that's the way I look at it. And so you see a guy sometimes that runs like that.
Definitely. It took an absolutely textbook perfect tackle from Manu, from a young man that is just a driven linebacker, to keep him out of the end zone for a second time on Saturday. Generally, Isaiah Augusta's momentum is always pushing him forward, and I think that's a big reason why that a lot of people have clamored for him. It's like he's going to get the most out of what's out there.
Yeah, and as far as Charlie Offerdahl, I mean, he made the most of his moment the other day as well. Had a nice 39-yard run, had some good carries. So you'd like to see Charlie continue that going. If he's that number 2 healthy back this week, I mean, we don't know what Dallin or Michael Welch. I mean, Welch now, that's a couple weeks that he's been dealing with that hamstring issue. Those can really linger.
Yeah, that's a tough one because it feels like it's okay. It's kind of like an ankle. It just it's going to be more sensitive until you really give it a lot of time. And we don't have a whole lot of time around here, especially for a young man like Michael Welch, which the want-to factor is very high for him. So he's going to do everything he can to get back on the field. But he's a true freshman, so you kind of go back to the fact that if Isaiah Augusta and Dallin Hayden gets back in there, they can kind of carry the load this year. And then I think the future is bright again for all those guys. I mean, they all have multiple years of eligibility, but Michael Welch is going to have a lot of time to show what he can do here.
Yeah, and Flea also said, look, there's a lot of football left to be played, which indicates to me they don't really want to push Micah too much. If he's not totally ready this week, he may not play. Brandon Hood, he was asked about him as well, another freshman, really talented young back. It sounds like he's just not quite there, not ready to play yet. I mean, he's doing some good things on the scout team, but it sounds like he's not quite ready to really help them right now.
We saw Brandon Hood at that open scrimmage down in Denver, and I liked what we saw from him. Those Hood brothers have a pretty good getup. We've seen Colton with some of those interceptions. He turns into a return man very quickly, and I think Brandon Hood is going to be a very good player here. But yeah, it's nice to be able to bring him along a little bit slower.
Yeah, well, the pastor E. Dewey Smith knows the Hood brothers very well. He told me about them this summer, so he was right. So shout out to the pastor because he's right. Those guys know how to play some football. Arden Walker, Cherokee grad, he's been part of that group, that pass rush group. He has not collected the sacks like some of those other guys, but he's making impactful plays, and he's part of that group that's really coming on lately.
You could say he's as maybe the best against the run out of all those edge guys. Deion Hayes was really good in that role early on too. Yeah, you can tell that it means a lot to him as well out there, and he joined that sack party out in Tucson last week. And being a Colorado kid, it also kind of adds to the story a little bit. He went away initially to go to Missouri, even though he's a legacy, because frankly, this program wasn't where he thought it needed to be going forward. And Coach Prime takes over. He transfers back home. And really, in the second half of last season, was a guy a lot of us were talking about maybe getting the keys from Jordan Dominic, and then they go out to the transfer portal and bring in a bunch of guys. And so it's been this really successful rotation there that now leads. You don't just talk about the edge guy in this, but CU's defense ranks first in the Big 12 in sacks right now, and in tackles for a loss as well. So they've seen it all come together, it feels like.
Well, and speaking of Jordan Dominic, I actually tweeted out yesterday a stat that last year he had the only 2-sack game of the year for the Buffs, whereas they've had 5 different guys have one this year. And he actually replied to that tweet and was like, that room got a lot better. Something about go eat, guys. So, it's such a difference when it was he played really well last year, but it's such a difference when you got 5-6 guys that can do that.
And that's the difference across the board on this team. Is receiver, you go down 4 guys in one game and you still have talented guys you can throw out there. Not to the level of a Travis Hunter, and Omari Miller was having a great game, but you've seen that. And they rotated 8 offensive linemen last week. The defensive line rotation's been very deep. Shiloh Sanders goes down, Carter Stutmeyer comes in, and you don't see a whole lot of a drop-off. And so that's been kind of, to me, the theme that's the biggest difference with this team. And that edge group is one of the first ones to point to in terms of that improved depth that they have.
Well, it'll be a key again this week with that depth and that edge group against Cincinnati. We'll be back later this week with a game preview.